Hey everybody, it's Texas Stroker here, Lance's Performance Shop, LoneStarMultipliers.com. We got some stuff to talk about. Need to see what your opinions are, what you would do, what you prefer, if you go with easy street or you take full-on custom. And what we're talking about has to do with some sockets, and it has to do with some stuff like this from Ernst. If we come in green, you think, oh, I love that. Green looks fantastic. I agree. There's a problem. Still, after all this time, like, this is it. 18 inches. That's the only way you're going to get the green rail. That's why you see me lop off 5 inches all the time to fit 13-inch trays, cut them down further. That's what we do in the custom Ernst series, right? We're making what we want, and I usually kind of know. In this case, if I introduce this item to you, think like, well, what's that? Little stubby... is it hex bits? Yeah, that's what we're looking at. Koken Hex bits. In this case, it's the metrics. I also added 2 very small sizes that I see frequently with headlights and stuff. And you think, whoa, hey, that's... Yep, I see why you'd cut that down, man. Is that even 8 inches? And it's not. You could compact this even more. But if you put these on that rail, you have 10 inches of dead space. And you think, well, hey, you know, don't be so hard on yourself. Don't make it difficult. Jump on easy street, you know. Come in and you've got 18 inches of space, so fill it up. So you'd take this. This is the jump up. This kind of bothers me because DRPD has come in and they've done an amazing thing. I think these were 62 millimeters OAL, if I recall correctly. SAE was 50, and there were no like 50 millimeter metrics. It didn't really make sense to me when I bought all this stuff. I was like, that's odd. And he somehow got Koken to make them, and so that would have been great for symmetry, but yeah, it'll be fine. And what I'm referencing is the SAE sizes, right? This is metric stubby, which is kind of like an equivalent, if you will, in SAE, and then these are just like a little bit taller than the SAE equivalent. So you're thinking like, would I fill that out, or do I think you should do what you do when you cut this stuff up? You know, butcher it, make it your own, stagger these back to back. I mean, look how good this would work. Quarters there, your bigger, longer set here in the middle. Man, you could even go 3 rows and have like something taller, you know, or ball end or something. That's the issue. And to do that, to cut this down, we got to spend some time, make it happen, you know, glue or plastic weld. And it's a question, what do you prefer? And I can give you the visualization here, you know, line these up back to back just like you'd see if they were actually installed onto the pegs. And you can tailor them, you can cut them, you can process it and make it all your own. Or you can take easy street and do this. This is orange. What does that mean with me and the Koken cart? It means we've got SAE. There's your quarter drive. There's your 3/8 drive. And you're like, well, what's next? Let's see it. Dead space. You're thinking like, that's a lot of sockets on there. Yeah, it's the full complement of quarter, the full complement of 3/8, and then we've got dead space, roughly, with the spacing, which is modest. I'm going to tell you again, 18 inches here. You can look, you've got like 13 and a half on to the 18-inch mark. That's desolate. You're thinking like, yeah, you couldn't really fit a full set, you know, like 1/2 inch or even taller or ball end. What would you do in that case? Well, that's what I'm trying to figure out. And it's very difficult because part of me is like, well, take easy street. Do it simple. You know, just run this, and I would have this rail right here, and I would have the green one right there, and it would be super cool and kind of make sense, right? But then you say to yourself, well, hey, you mentioned ball end. I haven't seen you brought any of those in. I haven't. You know, usually I'm like, oh, geez, can't spoil a future video. I have not brought in ball end hex from Koken. I don't even know if they make them. I assume they would, but I haven't brought them in. And you think, oh, well, don't worry about that. Well, you kind of have to try and future-proof. The cool thing with sockets, like if you're going from quarter to 1 inch and 3/8 drive, there's really nothing I'd want to add in there, right? You might think, oh, you should get 12 point. Yeah, that makes sense. But, you know, there's no gap filler that's going to like, oh, I'm thinking, geez, you know, I should have bought that pinwheel down here. You know, I should have got this gargantuan, you know, that the 3/8 drive tools aren't strong enough to break free. It's like a set thing. I'm very confident that I wouldn't add smaller or larger. With these, I kind of don't know. And if you come in, like, I can custom cut right here. Boom, beautiful. Match this same size, boom. Build a socket tray, cut it down, plastic weld it. Sweet, right? But then what do? You can think, well, hey, don't worry. If you go ball end, just get whatever size you want, put it on the socket boss, and then if you get the funds or you decide that you want smaller or the bigger versions of the ball ends, make another one, you know. And I can see that, but it would be nice to kind of like get some finality, right? So we're sort of at a deal where, what would you prefer? Would you want, you know, your quarter, your 3/8, your half? Let's just assume you could pile them all together. Would you want that there? Would you want 3/8 super stubby, 3/8 standard length, and 3/8 like 4-inch all on one rail? Or do you prefer them to be stepped, you know, like socket rail 1, socket rail 2, socket rail 3, in a more compact form-fitting factor? In that instance, you're taking an 18-inch rail and you're making it 8 inches, but you're going back 3, right? Or 2, depending on what you're doing. In this instance, just to keep it simple, we can go, let's just measure this. I'm ironically pretty sure we could fit this in a 13-inch iteration. It's a little past that now. Clearly we have some space we could eat up. So let's just, for good measure, say that I can lop off 5 inches, make this 13-inch, and buy a preformed tray from Ernst. That's seeming like a pretty good option, right? As opposed to having this dead space. Then part of me, and this does cost more money because with this, I lop off 5 inches, I'm done. To put these sockets behind these on a new rail, I have to have a new rail because I need this end right here, right? I don't own a router. I'm not a carpenter. I'm not sure I could replicate this. I think we could get close. Maybe we could even just drill it and just, you know, chew through the plastic or something. Wouldn't look good, but it would be functional. I'm confident we could at least get it functional, maybe. And that's the question. You know, do I want to lop this, go with a 13, have it mirrored? And then the cool thing there, if we did the 13 and we went ball end, then it's like, ooh, ball end, and ooh, ball end, you know, standard length, and put that back there and kick the green one out with metric, because you need a new 13-inch tray to do that with metric. I'm totally at a loss there because I'm not quite sure. Part of me, you know, like, if this was in any other cart, or if my blue work cart were here, you know, and the orange one was at work, I would buy an 8-inch mag rail, okay? And I would forego the socket tray completely unless I wanted to add it. But I just have a nicely finished out 8-inch. We'd have this end here for the lock. We'd have the nice formed end here instead of my straight cut that I do. And I would run 8-inch, 8-inch, and then whatever I get in the future would go on an 8-inch. Again, they currently don't make that. I'm sure by the time I wrap all this stuff up, painstakingly, you know, it'll probably surface. But for now, it's kind of like, yeah, what do I do? And as I started this video, I was like, you know what, we gotta stick true to form. Let's dial this sucker in and chop 10 inches out of that tray and make ourselves an 8-inch socket boss again. And then part of me is saying, no, your little, as I sat here and, you know, like ramble this stuff off, I'm like, you know, the 13-inch idea is not bad. Because that gives me a little versatility. I can still cut down if we ever decide to in the future. And again, that's a preformed tray from Ernst that doesn't require me to chop it up in multiple places and stitch it together. So this is easy street, keeping the dead space, but it's not efficiency, right? Efficiency and easy street rarely intersect, okay, except for a fleeting moment in time. So trying to maximize things, cram as much cool stuff as we can in the box, capitalize on our limited real estate in here. 13-inch or 8-inch, you know, or whatever size. I mean, we can custom. If I want to make it 7 3/4 inch, we can do that. That's my options, right? Either stack, you know, like this is in the front and this is in the back, which, in my opinion, the aesthetic form factor there is just chef kiss perfection. But this doesn't seem terrible, really. What would you do? Like, if this was you, what would you do? Would you just keep them on the spring steel and chuck them in your box and hope they don't come off and see if you can find it when you need it? Or would you dial it in? And if so, what would you do? That's my question. I've got the almost exact same problem here. Just today at work, I told you I was taking the blue mag rails to work. These 9, I believe 9, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, yeah, 9 sockets, 1/4 to 3/4 if I remember correctly, 3/8 drive, 6-point nut grip. They fit beautifully on the 8-inch blue mag rail. You're like, well, buy a green or orange 8-inch mag rail, but well, they don't make it. You can't get a mag rail in orange or green at all, which is unfortunate. And if you think like, well, that doesn't matter, well, when you forego the tray and you're shutting the cart drawers, which I don't slam them, but I do move it, and sometimes, like when you're rolling it, stuff falls. It's just minor annoyance, but I wouldn't mind having the 8-inch orange and 8-inch green mag rails, 13-inch, 18-inch. Again, it's just, it doesn't exist, so we're sort of like forging our own path here, right? And, this would be awesome, and it fits great on 8-inch. 8-inch is kind of overkill for the SAE. One of these is, wait, is this metric? Yeah, this is SAE. So one of these is on extension somewhere, but the other one, these are the OG sets, so they've added the 9/16 where my thumb is. It's sitting down over here. This guy right here is off, again, on a long extension currently. But see what I mean? Like, these are spaced very generously as opposed to the compact nature. You could fit these things on like a 4-inch rail, okay? But I don't want to make a standalone socket tray for that, so I would put them on an 8-inch and have them spaced, kind of like this, right? And then have this behind them. Or do we replicate what we did here and just, boom, have 1/4 and then 3/8? I'm legitimately torn. I see benefits in every direction. I see benefits as well just sticking with Easy Street and being like, 18-inch, maybe someday I'll want something over here. Future expansion. What would you do and why? What do you prefer? The saddest thing with all of this, Koken makes these really nice nut grips. And, well, geez, where are they? Over here. This would be, that's like metric row 1, metric row 2, and then metric row 3. I intentionally picked the nut grip feature, or I guess they call it the hex grip feature if I'm thinking correctly, on the long ones because that's generally when I would want the retention, right? If it's something close quarters, I'll get the bolt started or something. But with this, it's like I'm up in a cumbersome spot. I'm going inside a dashboard. I'm up and underneath. I'm in a terrible position. My back hurts. There's something digging into me. That's when I want something longer, and that's when it would make sense to me to have the retention ring, right? So this would be a 3rd row, or do you cut this down and stage only these because they're special and different with the retaining ring? There's so many options, and it's time consuming and expensive to explore all your potential solutions. So I'm going to cobble something together because quite honestly, I'm sick of everything being loose on these spring steel rails and bouncing around. It just drives me nuts. I'm usually looking for the Hex SAE sizes, so I did this finally. And then the nut grips have been waiting for an eternity. In part, I've kind of like, surely they're going to do the shorter rail. It hasn't happened. So yeah, that's where I'm at. And I honestly don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know what the best solution is, but I wanted to know what you would do. Or what you have done. Some of you have probably been in the same boat, maybe not the same sockets or brands or items, but you might have had semi-deep sockets you add in, and like, what do? Do you go change everything you've done with your shallows and deeps? Or do you segregate the semi-deeps as special and pair SAE and metric as a quick grab type of thing? There's really no right answer. It's all personal preference. It's just, what do you do? And, again, there's a very easy way, a pretty easy way, lopping 5 inches off of this, and then there's a very time-consuming and not difficult way. And I don't know what to do. So I'm going to think about it. I'm going to do something, because again, I'm sick of this. And we're going to see how it goes, and I'll show you what I did, and possibly live to regret it and wish I had done something different. And then we'll go spend more money on perfecting our organization after we've made mistakes that we learn from, because I don't have anyone else to watch make mistakes, so I know what to do. So forging a trail here. You're either going to like what I do or hate it, and if you hate it, congratulations, do something else, and if you like it, you're welcome. Now you don't have to think about it, and you can see it, materialize it in front of you, and know what to do. So I'm going to quit rambling. I'm going to get more in line with a fan because it's hot, humid, and nasty out here. And I'm going to have some fun in the shop. So stay tuned. I don't know what we're doing, but we're going to do something. And I'll show you whatever it turns out to be. Alright, so this kind of seems wasteful. I sort of hate doing it, but I think I would just prefer the shorter rail. I've currently got this clock to make another 8-incher. If you recall, our first one, I wasn't super happy with the placement of the center section, so I now make that my focal point. And basically what we do, these mold releases, pressure points, whatever you want to call them, that's basically 2 inches, okay, from here to here. And so I'm going 1 inch this way and 1 inch that way, meaning from this line to that line is 4 inches. And if we're making an 8-inch socket boss, well, we would need that to be longer, right? So we're coming over here, we've got our 2 inches, we've got our 2 inches. Of course, the catch is, and I've got the math somewhere, you need to add just a little bit. Like an 18-inch rail is usually in like a 19-inch tray or something like that, right? But the main reason I stopped before I did that, I was sitting here and I was looking for my marker and I couldn't find it, and I was like, well, okay, I'll just go grab one from a known location. And as I'm doing that, I'm like, I should grab the Picas. You know, I got them, they're brand new. And then as I was going to get the marker out, I was like, wait, I'm going to try the pencil. And you're thinking like, well, I don't know where you're going with this, because you clearly use like a little paint marker. That is a freaking, it's this right here, okay? The Pica Dry, I popped out the lead and inserted the white one, and by golly, it marks really nicely. So right here, if I just come in and we'll go custom. It's probably not the best way to do it, but it actually writes on plastic of all things, and it's visible. And since I'm just gonna cut this stuff up, it's great. So yeah, shout out to the Pica Pencil. That thing's actually turned out to be pretty useful here. I was kind of skeptical. I'm like, yeah, marks on what? And sure enough, it's actually pretty good. So I'll continue using it. Might try blue and green just for the heck of it, who knows. But right now I've got to get back in front of the fan because it is freaking hot in here. Alright, so it's 10:20. It's really hot in here. The door's down so bugs don't come in. I've not eaten supper. I have to go to work in the morning. But we've made significant progress. We also sort of established a decision, and keep in mind I haven't like finished these rails out or anything. I just really wanted to get something progression wise to showcase and be proud of tonight so I could sleep easy. This is what I did. We've got the SAE quarter drive SAE 3/8, and if you're curious, that is totally an 8-inch rail. Cut it down. Why? Because I like that. That to me is aesthetically pleasing. Yeah, they fit on one 18-inch rail. Yeah, I could cut it down to 13. Yeah, we could replicate that in the back. Maybe we should have done that. Would have been way easier. But we're doing this. I'll be honest with you, if this was available magnetic, you know, so the rails were more secure, I absolutely would have gone that route. I would have just bought them if these were magnetic, and I could customize those somehow if the layout of the magnets was right, even if it meant 9, 10, 11 inches, whatever. I would have done that, and I don't think I would run a socket boss with these. I think 8-inch hex rails, it's sufficient to just go as is, but with them being in this state, I think I'm going to switch it up and make the socket boss. That's kind of what we're in the progress of. That's what's next. But I didn't stop there. That wouldn't have taken me too long. I went ahead for max visual enjoyment. We've got our metric quarter drive. We've got our metric 3/8, again with their kind of like default length, I guess, from Koken of 62 millimeters, even though those are 50, again, strange. Right here, which, as best I remember, they don't have a SAE equivalent of these. That's another reason we might borderline leave things as is. But tell me that that just doesn't look good, right? Can we compact it even more? Yeah, but realistically, if I start making like 4.5-inch socket bosses, if Ernst ever does, or, you know, release 8-inch orange, green, high-vis, whatever, magnetic, non-magnetic, I can't use them with anything unless I customize those. If I make an 8-inch socket boss to accept these, and everything changes, or we add ball, or, you know, SAE, this and that comes out, I can use those 8-inch socket bosses that we will painstakingly create by dissecting them and, you know, reconstructing them with something else on a default Ernst rail, right, if it comes down to that. So the way this would also gain my appreciation is going to be just like this. Okay, side by side in my box, I go SAE left, metric right, and we'll just kind of stagger step these for the OCD crowd. Hopefully we got to center it a little bit better than that. I will tell you the one negative: all three of these Ernst green rails have the sweet labeling right there. The orange ones don't currently. This was from an old rail, and then a quarter drive rail didn't have them, so I just matched it. But that's what these would look like in the drawer. Assuming Koken makes an SAE set with hex grip in 100mm length at some point in time, we could have a 3x3. So that's awesome. You can't see that all the way, dadgum. Man, I'm starving, I tell you. I really don't have anything. I don't have milk for cereal. I don't have bread and sandwich meat. I've got bread. It's just like probably rotten and molded, so that kind of kills that. I don't know what I'm gonna do, but probably chips and hot sauce. I don't know. But man, that looks good. It is super satisfying. Went ahead when I had these rails, I just plunked everything out metric label wise, go over them with a plastic razor in hopes they adhere very well. Pop them off and then cut on the bandsaw. The sad thing is I've got 8 inches here. That means I've got like 10 inches of scrap. Again, at some point in time, like if I ever play around with a router and can replicate that, I could conceivably reconstruct my scrap pieces and turn them into something as well. But I've also got some other crazy ideas in my head. But this is a great stopping point. It's aesthetically pleasing. It's visually appealing. It is simple. I can line up the sizes again. These are basically almost identical across here, and then we've got the half added, so I can line up the labels. I can line up the pegs. Same thing here. Granted, the quarter drive's pretty different, but these are identical set contents, right? 3 through 12. Same thing in the back, so you can orchestrate it beautifully. I just like it. Again, the previous iteration, it would have been a thing where we had like quarter drive going into 3/8 drive, and it works, it's easy, but this to me, it's just better. So now all we've got to do is, like I said, slice and dice the socket bosses and put the things back together. So that's a little time consuming, and like I said, I'm starving. I'm gonna get inside, but this looks good to me. So what would you do? What would you have done? Would you have done this? Clearly, it's what I elected to do. The good news is this is the hard part. This is the most difficult thing that we're doing now. Slicing and dicing down to 8 inches, chopping up socket bosses. That's the time-consuming hard thing. If I decide in the future, or if they add pieces, or we go ball end, or anything, whatever we decide to do, if I want to do that on 18-inch rails or just chop new one down to 13, I can do that. If Ernst releases these in 13-inch or 8-inch or anything magnetic, we can easily pop these off and go with what they do. Hey everybody, Texas Trophy here. We are back. It is Thursday. It's very freaking hot, 102 outside, like 96 in here, trying to forget about that. And I'm trying to forget about the train wreck of a video that we've got going on here. So we're going to try to wrap it up quick, succinct. I suck at that. I'm a man, I'll admit it. Not my strong suit. I've actually done it, and I had forgotten what all we'd recorded ahead, and it was going to turn into like a 50-minute video, and I'm trying to avoid that. So basically going to reshoot what we did. But we were basically coming in, and this is the roadmap right here. Orange and green rails. I love them. That's what we're doing in the Koken cart, the US General Master Tech, the full bank, whatever you want to call the thing. And when you buy an orange or a green rail at this time from Ernst, they're 18 inches. You can get a blank rail, you can get them populated in a socket boss, whatever you do, quarter, 3/8, half, or blank, they're 18 inches. Not a big deal, right? We love that. We can use them where we can. If we want to be more efficient with our space, we can chop them down 13 inches. Put them in a tray. We can chop them down custom. We've done a 10-inch, fit really well with some Capri quarter drive impacts. And we do the 8-inch for stuff like we've done here. We kind of decided we were going to do that with the Koken Hex bits. So, to follow that format, to recap it, this is what I found works for me. center to center of these 2 dots, I'll get my hand out of there so it'll focus, but you know, these kind of part lines, if you will, that's 2 inches. If we come from the center line out 1.25 inches on each side, 1.250 x 2 is 250, 250 plus 2 is 4,500, 4.5 inches. That's our center. It's perfectly centered, right? To accommodate an 8-inch rail, we need about 1/2 inch extra to allow the keyhole to snap and slide. So 4.5 to get to 8.5 is our target number. We'd need 4 more inches, right? So 2 here and 2 here. That covers both the slide end to end, if you will, and the push to release lock at the start. So that's basically the format we used. You cut them, you prep them, you plastic weld, or you epoxy. The end result, if we come in, this is what we started with, and it's what we decided to do. We're going to throw it down. Beautiful. Koken metric hex bit sockets, 1/4 drive, 3/8 drive. Could we have fit them on an 18-inch rail and done nothing and used that tray? Yes, but we'd also have enough dead space to put this same thing again. Okay, not a great use of our space. Could we have lopped the 18-inch rail off and used a 13-inch tray and had the 1/4 and the 3/8 spaced decently with a little extra space at the end? Absolutely. The thing is, for me, this varies person to person, individual to individual. Everyone has their preferences. I like this. This is aesthetically pleasing. It's quick. It's efficient. It makes the most sense to me. I'm accustomed to it. I love it. So, 1/4 drive, 3/8 drive, we're home free. Some of you are like, hey, what about, I thought you had the hex grips. I do. I totally forgot when we were making this that they don't fit. The US General drawers are very tall. You can fit a lot in them. Every drawer is like the same dimensions minus the bottom. Not necessarily the best use of space. For wrenches, you might prefer to have 2 drawers instead of 1 for, you know, SAE metric, so on and so forth. But for everything else, just a generic, like, we don't know what people are going to put in there, it's great because you can fit sockets in any drawer, right? Not just your top or the chest, right? So with these, everything's fine, but that 4-inch overall length, 100 millimeter, it's just, I mean, we're talking like it just barely shaves it. So that was a no-go. Unfortunately, I really don't think I have any drawer that would house those. The tops would, but I'll be honest, that's not a frequently enough used thing to justify going into the top of the box. So they're going to have to lay over or lean on something. But this is our metric. The way I do things, metric goes over here to the right. Why? Because it's easier for me to grab to my left, and that's where I start to read, and that's SAE. That's what I like to see. So this is same setup here. This is Koken SAE, 1/4 and 3/8. Awesome, awesome setup. It's what I like. It's unique. It's different. Ties in with the cart. Makes me happy, etc. Again, don't want to waste too much time here so I can edit quicker and you can get on with your day too. And there's also a reason for this. You're going to want to stick around to the end. But right there, side by side, that makes me so happy. In that same cart, I cannot fit a 13-inch tray beside a 13-inch tray. So that's a buzzkill. You certainly can't fit an 18-inch beside an 18-inch, even if you flip and rotate 90 degrees. So this is aesthetically pleasing on multiple fronts. All right. You'll also recall as I turn around, I said, hey, we got something else we're going to throw into this video, and that something else was Koken's Nut Grips. This orange correlates to SAE. This is on an extension over on a table, and 3/8 in the back, 1/4 inch in the front. Again, this is spaced a little bit differently because that's all they've got. This does include the 9/16. I bought it on the OG set that was just 5. This was added later. Now you can actually buy the set that way. It's set up, it would go here. You're thinking like, plop us down the metric, it's gonna look cool. Here's the deal, I have 1/4 drive metric nut grips, but I don't have the 3/8. I haven't picked that up yet. Again, when I tell you I deal in old stuff, that's I'm not lying, or we'd have the metric first, right? This is 70s and back Mopar. If I did 3rd gen Camaros, 4th gen F-body stuff, like you would see the metric here, and I'd say maybe someday we'll buy SAE. I'm the opposite. So the reason I didn't pre-cut a tray is simple. I'm not sure what size of a set I'm going to get on the 3/8, so if it turns out to be like 9 inches of real estate I need, I'd be an idiot if I painstakingly went through this process for an 8-inch tray. So put that one on hold. The bonus item I'm going to throw in for you is right here, and this is where we will eventually segue into some good news on the overall, very good news really. I'm going to drop this down. This, you're like, what in the world is that? Okay, this looks like 6-point SAE and 6-point metric. Yes, 3/8 drive, semi-deep. Tilt that sucker up for you, semi-deep, okay? And you're thinking like, well man, you should just listen to yourself. 1, 2, 3. You should get a 3-row tray, shallow, semi-deep, deep. Isn't that what you'd want? In fact, didn't you just do Koken's metric 12-point sockets in that exact fashion, and we're super happy about it? Yes. And our first ever 8-inch tray came year ago, like maybe 2 years ago, been a while, but we had blue mag rails, 8-inch mag rails from Ernst, and I cut down, I don't know if it was a 13 or an 18-inch tray anymore, but we cut one down and we made an 8-inch socket boss, and that houses my SAE 12-point in shallow, semi-deep, and deep. That has been in the top of the box since I made it, because again, you know, the machinist in me, the 12-point fasteners I come across, it's actually worth having up there. It's a nice complement to 6-point impacts, right? So if you're thinking like, well, why have this here? Well, think about it. Our Koken shallow and deep 3/8 are not, shocking as that may be, in an Ernst tray. And you're thinking like, oh dude, you gotta fix that, you know, go build one, make one, you know, you need 13, 18-inch, get it set up. I would love to, but here's the deal. MTS, you know, they've got the lock socket rails, they've got the friction peg holders, a couple other items, but the friction pegs I was very intrigued by. We brought them in from Carlisle, the blue ones, and I thought, you know, I wonder if they have them in orange. So I didn't find them anywhere, and I thought it seems like they would, because they have other stuff in orange, right? And so I emailed them, and they said, well, we don't actually have them, but we've thought about having them. In fact, we've got prototypes. Would you like one? And I was like, yeah. And so they sent them, and kind of to demo those and make good use of them, I have SAE and metric in the top drawer of the cart with our Koken 3/8 6-point shallow and deep. That means the semi-deeps didn't have a home, right? Which is a shame. The friction pegs, as cool as those are, they've never made a 3-row iteration that I'm aware of. So these needed something done, right? They were just on spring steel rails, and it kind of got annoying, and that's my solution. The sad thing is these 3 trays are great. This tray is not. I'm not happy with the way this turned out. If you recall at the start of the video, I had a 4-inch center section and 2 inches on the end, and that's 8 inches, which does not fit an 8-inch rail for the keyhole reason, right? I even mentioned that in that earlier clip, and somehow I went through and like marked everything. I have assembly line in my head, you know, from work. It's like industrial, so I don't just one off something unless I have to. I assembly line it. So if I'm going to make 8 of these, I mark, cut, you know, weld. I don't do like 1, I do like 8 in series, okay? Somehow I cut that short, and I was like, oh geez, I caught myself, but I'd already cut one side, and so I just went ahead and lopped the other one off the same, sat it to the side, built all of these, came back to this. And if you're thinking like, okay, so you're missing a 1/2 inch, that's not terrible, but you'd have to meter it, so you can't have a 1/2 in the middle, you have to go 1/4 and 1/4. That's what I did. And you can see that sectioning right here. This is 2 inches, a 1/4 inch. This would be 4, this is a 1/4, and this is 2. So 4 and 2 is 6, and 2 is 8, and 1/4 and 1/4 makes 1/2. This is functional. I'll give myself credit there. It looks terrible. Okay, I could clean this up, like scrape the epoxy, you wouldn't see it as much. I'm just not happy with the workmanship on that. Here's the deal. Totally functional, it's fine. We could redo it. Everything that could go wrong when I was trying to do this did. It is 102 here right now. It's been 100 plus for like 6 or 7 days. It's also been humid while it's 100, which is weird. You know, when we're 105, it's like a dry 105 with a strong southwest wind, and if you're outside, it's really not that bad. This is different. This is oppressive heat. Okay, and in this shop, that humidity and heat plus the epoxy I was doing, this is like 11 o'clock at night, trying to get inside. I had work in the morning. It just, the epoxy, as soon as I mixed it, it was like set. And then I had this thing together. I was trying to clamp it. I had it clamped. I think I was making another one, you know, epoxying it, trying to, and this fell and, you know, shattered apart. And I had to put it back together, and I had to clean it. Just, everything that could go wrong did go wrong. So I'm going to redo that. And this is where you come in, because you're thinking like, okay, well, go ahead. You've got this one marked out. Just go ahead and cut it down, right? Wrap the video up. Nope. I'm not going to cut that down. And you think, well, you got to replace this. What are you going to do? Just rework this one? That's fine. Are you going to make it a little bit bigger? Maybe add like a 7 and, you know, get like a bigger 3/8 socket too? No. The way I'm going to fix that is go buy an 8-inch tray from Ernst. It's not an awkward silence. It was an intentional pause for you to marinate on what I just said. I'm going to go buy an 8-inch tray from Ernst. That is the email that I got, not from Ernst, but from Tekton on Thursday. Or I guess Tuesday. Whatever day the 30th was. I think it was Tuesday. I'm out here. I've been cranking this Ernst stuff out for like 7 to 10 days. This is the last stuff I'm doing. I'm out sweating my butt off late into the nighttime hours, cranking this out. And I'm going through my email, and I've got an email from Tekton. It's like, check out our new products. And I'm like, okay, you know, the hooks and picks and everything. And I scroll back up. My email is weird and like loads the bottom first. So I go back up, and they have an 8-inch tray. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. They have an 8-inch tray. And I was kind of in shock, you know, and I'm thinking like, I just spent all this time, you know, like making these, and next thing I do is I'm like, I gotta check with Ernst. So I hit Ernst up, and they confirmed the news. Like, they've got them. Tekton has them in stock, ready to go. Ernst is they've got them. They just haven't added them to the site. So yeah, if you were in the process of saying like, my goodness, you know, I thought this guy was an idiot, I would have just run 18-inch rails and been done with it, but he's right. This pleases me too. I'm happy seeing what he's created here. Your life just got a lot easier. Yes, you're going to have to cut the rails down. That's super easy. You make one cut. You can use a Dremel. You can use a handsaw. You can put it on a portaband. You can use a bandsaw. Whatever. You could chew through it. I mean, your dog might get pretty close and just sand off the excess. You can then plug that into an 8-inch tray, an official 8-inch tray, not something you've cobbled together or I've cobbled together. So, for your convenience, if it is up on Ernst's site, I'm going to link that sucker. If not, I'll have the Tekton one linked. Tekton's going to be exactly the same as Ernst. It's just going to say Tekton. Some of you may not have even remembered. There's branding. It's very subtle. I love that. But Tekton would say Tekton there. It's made by Ernst. Tekton sells it. Tekton likes their rails, just like Capri went with Westling. Tekton went with Ernst. Tekton does have gray. I cannot stress that enough. You're not going to get the gray from Ernst. That's like a Tekton exclusive, at least best I know. Could be wrong. So yeah, I needed to share that with you. And I'm going to call this video good there and save myself about 10 minutes of time. So yeah, it's super hot. I have a package that came a day early all the way from Germany that I'm really wanting to get opened up here, and I'm going to do that. But yeah, again, succinct, not my strong suit. But as I have this here and look down on it, ignoring like the bad workmanship here, which is totally me, these, to my credit, you know, look really good. I mean, you can barely see that sectioning. And again, they are strong, they're functional. I mean, you can see the seams there. I love that. Looking at it in the box, I'm just as happy. This is a killer setup, and it got so much easier. I'm sure at some point in time, Ernst will have 13-inch and 8-inch rails in orange and green, maybe even magnetic. I don't know when. I don't know for sure. It might be years down the line. It may never happen. They would have a much better feel for what sells and what people want than me. I'm the outlier. I'm the weird guy that's like, well, I think this would be cool to have it as 8-inch, and I just go hack things up and create it, right? So, do we get credit for the 8-inch tray? Maybe, you know, one of two things. I figure Ernst is like, this poor guy, you know, he's out here cutting this stuff up and trying to plastic weld and epoxy in it. We should just make one. Or like, oh, this guy is ruining our stuff. Man, I wouldn't even put that on the internet. That looks terrible. You know, and it might be a mix, you know, there might be some sympathy from some people and other people like, oh, geez, you know, this is terrible. But for whatever reason, you know, whether it was some of y'all or me or just a natural course, the more likely thing, they've had 8-inch rails for a while. Makes perfect sense to have the 8-inch tray. And I'll be honest with you, I would have bought 8-inch trays if I could have. Okay, so they are available now. You'll save so much time. Cutting the rails, very easy. Do not be worried about that, whether it's 13-inch or 8-inch. Go to town, make your dream setup. Because again, to me, the sending fashion of 1/4, 3/8, half, short, semi-deep, deep, that's what I like to see. I love the side-by-side as well, you know, SAE and metric. That's me. You may differ. You might do things totally opposite of that. Everyone has their preferences. For me, this is like as close to perfect as I could hope for, minus that. And yeah, there's 8-inch trays now, folks, so you're welcome. Again, I think it's just a natural course of evolution of the product, but we can sort of take credit for being idiot pioneers. Whether it was noticed and sympathized or totally unrelated, someone else at least thought 8-inch trays made sense and were good, and they're here. That's the main thing. They're available. I'm going to cash in with this. I've got trays I could cut down and make this. I'm going to buy one. These I'm going to keep in use because frankly they're fine, and I just would be throwing money away. But the good news is the trays are dirt cheap. I like dirt cheap. That's the craziest thing about Ernst. Made in America, but at ridiculously reasonable prices, especially when you like start doing stuff standalone, right? So keep that in mind. You might also go socket boss route. I'm sure Ernst will populate those out, at least in other colors, and then you can just buy blank rails and transfer over. You do the math, save yourself the most money. I'm going to get more in front of this fan, open up a package from Germany, but I joked in multiple of these Ernst customs. I joked about it, like, you know, as soon as we chop all this up, they're probably going to release that. Well, in the case of the 8-inch trays, my friends, they're really available. As soon as I get one, I'm going to showcase it, and I'll bring some of these back out. But with that, I want to keep this short, and so we're ending it. I'm just going to cut myself off. So LoneStarMopars.com is the website. You can find us Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all three at Lone Star Mopars. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like, leave a comment, let me know your thoughts on this. Had you already cobbled up some 8 or 13-inch? Do you cut down the orange and the green like I do? Were you about to do this and you're like, oh, you know, he's right. I'm going to save so much time and effort, you know, just buying the 8-inch tray. Let me know your thoughts on that. If there's anything else you want to see from Ernst. Do you want to see the rails in orange and green compacted to their default lengths of 8 and 13-inch? Do you want them magnetic? What color? I always push this, like purple, yellow, sky blue. You know, what would be your dream setup? Feel free to leave that down below. But with that said, I'm going to go. If you want to see this saga continue, if you want to see me get heartbroken and happy at the same time when Ernst introduces other things we've cobbled together, feel free to subscribe. If you do that, ring the bell, jump your charger across the creek, crash landing while holding your Koken SAE and metric hex bit sockets upside down on your Ernst trays. YouTube just might notify you. I've got new videos every Wednesday and Saturday, 9 a.m. Texas time. With that said, thanks so much for watching. And I hope I catch you back here for more from the shop.